Pick on the Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm social channels. I'm John Impemba alongside with Andrew Cooper. And Coop, we have made it. It is the 2023 NFL Draft Week. We are a day away from opening night here, and we at Better Sports Network have pretty much wall-to-wall coverage this week of everything that's going on with the NFL Draft. And we're kicking it off to here with the Quick Out Podcast.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you and I have been doing all the heavy lifting, going through and grinding through the landscapes for wide receiver, tight end, running back, all the current landscapes, doing all that work. Today we get rewarded. We get to plant some flags on some rookie players. What we're going to do today, go through. I've kind of grouped them into different buckets, like high-end guys, mid-range guys, low-end guys, and you're going to pick one from each group, and we'll plant some flags here once and for all before the draft tomorrow. Which, I mean, the coverage tomorrow is going to be insane. I'm fired up, John.
Yeah, I mean, we literally couldn't have a better group. The entire basically Better Sports Network roster there, kicking it off on Thursday. You, myself, Kev Tompkins, with the lightning round, the pre-draft show, right into the just full-on coverage here from the first round, second round, Friday and Saturday. Everything that we got going on here over at the Better Sports Network. Honestly, plus Bettercast. You have an opportunity to win a one-of-one Anthony Richardson card there. So I got to tune into Bettercast, participate, earn those points, answer those trivia questions. Just a lot to go going on here. And we're excited to do it here at Better Sports Network.
One-of-one Anthony Richardson card. My goodness.
Dude. Yeah, really hard to do better than that. I'll tell you that much when it comes to, if you're a collector, getting the one-of-one of anything is obviously a top priority there to that collector item.
Let me ask you, John, just off the top, let's say Anthony Richardson, 2 years from now, he's the next Jalen Hurts. Are you the kind of guy that keeps that card forever? Or are you the kind of guy that flips, says, you know what, I'm going to take the cash on this one, trades it to a mega fan for the big bucks? Where do you fall on that stuff?
Yeah, listen, I would gauge the value of the card. There are certainly the card space itself. We've seen a lot of cards depreciate in value of late. We really had that card boom during COVID. And we've seen now as more cards and collecting becomes more popular, the value of cards have dipped a little bit. But if you get a one-of-one of a guy that is maybe like a Super Bowl MVP type caliber player, league MVP type caliber player, no. That's something that you gauge the value. You see someone's going to make you that offer that you can't refuse. Otherwise, that's staying in the clutch.
You keep it. Yeah. It's like I need to be able to trade it for like a car, right? It's got to be like life-changing money. Right. And then I move it, or if he gets picked by like, I don't know, he ends up on the Jets, then maybe I'll trade it. So, yeah. But
100%. Cool. Before we get into it all, I got to remind everybody that it's NFL Draft Week here at Fantasy Alarm, and we have all of the fantasy football and betting content you need to prepare for the upcoming NFL Draft and NFL season. We're featuring Britt Flint's mock draft. We have rookie scouting reports, NFL team needs, player projections, our premium Discord chat, and more. And better yet, Coop, for a limited time right now, you get 20% off our annual package. That is our full season package. You don't get access to only our NFL content, but all of our DFS and seasonal content for all sports, MLB, NBA, NHL, MMA, PGA, you name it, we cover it. You get it for a year at a 20% discount using promo code NFL Draft there. So go to fantasyalarm.com, click on the pricing tab in the top right corner, or go to fantasyalarm.com/all-pro. Click the annual package, enter promo code NFL Draft. Save 20% off that package there and become a member of the family for a year, man. And there's really no better time to join than now because we have so much going on. We are super excited to be partnered with Better Sports Network now for the upcoming football season. You saw Coop and I all last year on Sundays answering your questions. We got Coop's Corner in the Discord now. You got Dynasty or Fantasy Football questions, direct access to Coop there. So you got to join the family today. You see that promo code there, NFL Draft. Get part of the All-Pro package right now.
And that really is to reward the people that are here with us this time of year, the dynasty gamers, the people that are, it's a year-round game for them, right? So if you go in, use that promo code now, you get 20% off. And we see the rest of you guys that trickle in August. I can say it because they're not going to listen to this podcast, right? So they trickle in August and they say, oh, I got a draft next week. Those guys have to pay full price. If you get in now with that promo code, you get the discount. You're here for a whole year and you get everything. So pretty good there. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, let's go. So, Coop, we're talking rookies. We're talking plant your flag into some rookies here. Let's start off at the quarterback, right? We
Yeah,
know, of course, at the top, Young and Stroud
let's skip
projected to
them.
go right up there, obviously. But probably one of the more hyped up prospects here was Anthony Richardson. He was a combine monster. He has comparable numbers to almost nobody when it comes to his speed, his size, his jump, his arm, his release. Like, he is the prototype quarterback here. Again, we're giving away a 101 card on draft night of Anthony Richardson. If he hits, that's a monster play. I love quarterbacks that are mobile. We talk about this all the time. I feel like they give you such a great fantasy floor because of that mobility. You saw how bad Fields was initially and Hurts was initially throwing the football, but they were able to put up some QB1 weeks purely on their legs. If Richardson goes to a spot where he can start, he's going to have QB1 weeks purely based off of his rushing upside. He's currently a first round projection. If you go to DraftKings Sportsbook, you have the Seahawks, you have the Colts, you have the Titans as the three teams that he is most likely, if you look at Vegas odds, to land. All three of those teams certainly have sort of their quarterback position, I won't say wide open. Geno Smith got a big money deal, but really only for a year. We know Ryan Tannehill, they're more than willing to move off of him and Malik Willis. He threw Prue last year. He couldn't throw a football. And then the Colts maybe moving with Gardner Minshew for a year here. So Anthony Richardson, for me, just for the athletic potential that he brings to the table, is a guy that I'm excited to see.
Yeah, you got to be. And, before I get into it, just want to say shout out everybody joining us in the chat. We're live now. We used to do this, just record it as a podcast. Of course, anybody listening out there, shout out to you too. But I just want to say, we see you guys, Al Williams. We see Need a Lot More Saturday Pro Football. Great username there.
Yeah.
Saying that the Bill's going to get D-Hop. Would love to see that, man. Would
We'll
love
see.
to see
Listen,
that
we're excited for
them.
these draft day trades, right?
Yeah.
We know that we're probably going to see a couple of them with all these names that have been floated around. We just got the Aaron Rodgers trade a couple days ago, so.
For sure. It's going down. Yeah. As far as Anthony Richardson it goes, like the crowd that loves to say, oh, he'll be a good running back, or maybe he can play wide receiver. Like that crowd has taken so many L's lately. It's getting pretty sad. Like you look at Jalen Hurts, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at all these guys that they were saying that about, not really panning out well for those guys. So if Anthony Richardson does go, that's the only thing for me. If he goes in the first round, I'm in. If he goes in the second round, I'm in. If he falls beyond that, then there's some serious red flags. I don't think that happens, but you got to remember last year, Malik Willis, people were mocking him at 1 overall.
Dude,
Right?
it was wild to me. I think what was more wild about that, it was him, it was Ritter. Like, these guys could go in the first round, fourth round, fifth round, right? Like,
exactly. So be careful, because the best third round quarterback in the last 25 years is Russell Wilson. The second best one is Matt Schaub. So if a guy goes in the third round or later, pretty much dead to me. So keep that in mind. I'm going to plant my flag since we're no Stroud, no Young. They've been talked to death. I don't feel like talking about the S2 cognitive test. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it tomorrow. I'm going to go with I'll go with Will Levis, and he's been getting a lot of hate, right? Like people are comparing him to Jay Cutler, but they're forgetting that Jay Cutler was awesome. Like, he was a physical specimen, threw the ball a country mile, where Will Levis claims he can throw it 80 yards, and after watching him at the combine, I kind of believe that he can. Right. And from what I'm seeing, the issues around him are mental and mechanical. And the mental stuff, whether or not that can be fixed, is debatable. The mechanical stuff, in large part, can be. Like Jay Cutler never put in the effort. He threw every pass off his back foot, and that was kind of his downfall. If this guy takes it seriously and fixes those things, I mean, that's what we saw Josh Allen, the complaints with Josh Allen, that, his accuracy, those issues. So Will Levis is a guy that, for me, if he gets the draft capital, goes to the right spot, I don't see why he's not worth taking a stab in your super flex leagues. Like, why can't he be great?
Yeah, no, listen, I agree with you. It's the arm talent that is always appealing. He has the NFL size as well, which is kind of what you look for in a quarterback. But like you said, it's all about, can he understand how to throw a football at the NFL level, right? So many of these guys have these weird releases, and sometimes they get away with it. Phillip Rivers, got away with that weird release that nobody thought was gonna be able to really play up at the NFL level, and you end up having, maybe a borderline Hall of Fame career for a guy that never won anything.
He looked like Keith Folk out there throwing the football. Remember that closer for just right at the ear hole? I don't know how he got away with it.
Yeah, just held the ball up high, showed him what he was throwing, and they couldn't hit the slinker. So, where are you going for a sleeper quarterback here, Coop?
So for sleeper, I mean, like I said, you can't go far past the third round. We're only going to do two quarterbacks apiece here. We got to get
Yeah,
through this, get to the fun players, right? Save extra time for them. I like Hendon Hooker. I've been hearing a lot about everybody I know that went to the combine, which these days is actually a ton of people. It's not, a lot of people are going over there. Every single person said that they enjoyed talking to Hendon Hooker. They liked the way he presented himself. He seems like a great guy. Now, I know you can't draft a quarterback just because he's a great guy,
right.
but I mean, that does go a long way when you're picking a leader. You want guys that people like. Look at Zach Wilson. I mean, you have to wonder if maybe he didn't continue to put his foot in his mouth, he would have got a longer shot, a longer leash, but he
Yeah,
continued to say pretty much the wrong thing routinely. So a guy like that, I like. Age to me, that like the cons are his age, the fact that he tore his ACL in November, like those are all kind of problematic. Also, they say that they ran a bit of a gimmicky offense, right? It's not your standard all pro, doesn't necessarily translate well, right? So he's going to need to learn but again, anybody that goes to like the Erhardt Perkins system from the West
right.
Coast needs to learn a new offense anyway. So, but he does need to learn a new offense. But for me, age, I don't care as much about it at the quarterback position. I don't know about you, John, but Aaron Rodgers didn't even start for a long time. Steve Young didn't actually become a starting quarterback till he was 30 years old, right?
Right.
And now he's in the Hall of Fame. So, the guy's 25 years old. We're gonna skewer him for that, just wipe him off the board. I don't know.
Right. It's not Chris Winkie graduating at like 30, right? So,
Right, exactly. There was another one too. I'm trying to remember the guy from Oklahoma that like played baseball for a little while and then
yeah,
came
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, Brandon Whedon. Brandon
Yeah,
Whedon was
Brandon
like
Whedon. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
27, right?
And the Browns used like a first round pick on it, didn't
Well, I
they?
mean, yeah, that's the thing is that like if he hits, then you got a 27-year-old quarterback that has another 10 years to play the way quarterbacks play now.
Yeah,
So
22nd overall pick by the Cleveland Browns. God,
goodness
they're such a bad
gracious.
organization.
What a mistake, dude. But anyway, anyway, I don't think Hendon Hooker is Brandon Whedon. And if someone takes him in the first round, then I'll absolutely be interested. I don't see why he would be that far off from any of these other guys that might not start right away either. So
Yep. For me, again, we're kind of just throwing some darts here a little later in the draft, but Tanner McKee from Stanford,
yeah,
it's a guy that just has that NFL size again that you're looking for, size and arm strength, right? You can sort of work on the deficiency he has. He doesn't have a lot of mobility, kind of gets lost in the pocket a little bit at times, but going late in the draft, you're looking for a project quarterback. Hard to beat a 6'6" guy that can throw the ball downfield, right? So if he doesn't pan out, you're not using a lot of draft capital on him. Again, projected to go 6th, 7th round, maybe even a priority free agent for a team. But someone that you think maybe can, because he's coming from a pro style offense, he can work his way up into and maybe be a good backup or a spot starter.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I just talked about it with Hendon Hooker. He's kind of the opposite, right? Like you just said, Stanford runs the pro, so he can, if with the right offense, he can slot right in and potentially play right away. And I mean, there's some teams where if the quarterback they take in the 6th or 7th round, like if they just take somebody late, could be very interesting. Like for instance, whoever the Cardinals take, it's a new regime. If they go in and grab somebody, that guy might actually get real reps to start the season. They say Kyler Murray's not going to be around till halfway through. He doesn't
Right.
have much to beat out. Like if Tanner McKee were to go to the Cardinals, I would definitely be stashing him in super flex just to see. I mean, sometimes these teams like look at Brock Purdy. It could happen just like that, where they draft a guy, he's their guy. They didn't draft Kyler Murray, so who knows? Well, he's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. There's not too many deeper than that we can really get into.
Right.
So I'm interested. But enough about quarterbacks, John.
Yeah,
Quarterbacks boring.
let's go to wide receiver here. Again, not
Yeah.
trying to state obvious here. Number one wide receiver projected to go off the board is Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State, a guy that is being comped to just some of the all top wide receivers that are basically in the league already. He is minus 425 to be the first wide receiver taken. Packers are the favorite right now in Vegas to draft him at plus 200. This is a guy that seems like is a can't miss prospect. And one of the things we've seen in these recent drafts is the wide receiver talent that's coming to the league. What do we used to say, Coop? Year three. It's year three
Right.
wide
Yeah, yeah,
receiver,
yeah.
right? It's now is the breakout season.
Chris Godwin, right?
These,
You had to
these
wait.
elite guys coming into college, coming out of college right now are year one Pro Bowl caliber
Hmm.
wide receiver ones. We're not waiting 3 years for these guys to break out anymore. They're hitting the ground running.
And it's funny you say that because his teammate Garrett Wilson got 147 targets last year, and I've actually heard people say that of the trio at the time, which was him, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Chris Olave also got like 120 and he missed a game. Like that he was the best of those three players. So you take the two guys that were the top dogs for offensive rookie of the year last year. There are people that sit here and say this guy was better. One of
Right.
those guys that actually said that is Brian Hartline. Now, and he, for those that don't know, he's the wide receiver coach for
Yeah.
Ohio State. Now, is he just trying to increase this guy's stock because the other guys are already in the league and they don't care?
Right.
Maybe,
Right.
maybe, but for him to even go there, right? Like I don't see him picking anybody else off the lineup to say that.
Next year he'll be saying that about
Marvin
Marvin,
Harrison,
yeah, Marvin Harrison
I
Jr. Yeah,
guarantee he
exactly.
does. I guarantee he does.
Who
Hey,
is
well, that
maybe the actual best wide
I think
receiver in
he
Ohio
is.
State. So
I think he is. I mean, just I know we're talking Jackson Smith and Jigba here, but
yeah.
there were quotes from the pro day where people like scouts were saying it was like going to the Lamborghini dealership and told that you can't buy it till next year, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
yeah, but yeah, JSN, I agree with you, John. He's I mean, I don't know many people. I haven't seen many negative takes on him. I'm gonna after this, I'm gonna go through and see if I can find anyone that's actually fading this guy because I
Right.
mean, he seems locked in. The question really,
It
is
was
he
the
just
playing time for him. He missed a lot of time.
yeah.
That was the one like potential drawback. But if he's healthy now, like there's no reason to really worry about that. Who was it that was it Chase that missed the whole year?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, he
Like,
did.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So obviously didn't impact him.
Did
So
not. Did not. Yeah.
that's
So
totally okay.
yeah, and the real question, next level is he just going to be a slot guy, or can he be a flanker that moves into the slot? Because that's the difference between like, I mean, Tyler Boyd's a perfect example because he used to play flanker and he was putting up 1,000 yard seasons and move into the slot for three wide. Now he only plays in the slot because they have Higgins and Chase, and
Right.
he's not putting up those seasons anymore. But I mean, the reality is whoever's paying up for this guy is expecting him to play every snap. So I'm not worried
Yep.
about it. For
Yep.
me, I'll go a little bit lower. There's a bunch of guys I like at the top. Like Zay Flowers, a guy has had multiple visits with our Patriots. But I like the guy Quentin Johnston. I see the comparisons for him. Guys like Sidney Rice. I had to go back and watch. To be honest, I didn't really remember too much about Sidney Rice, so I went back and watched some of
Right.
those Seahawks games and a little bit of time with the Vikings. And I mean, it's pretty good comp. Like whoever is eyeballing these comps, that's impressive because when you watch the two play, they're they can break off huge plays, especially on like posts where they get behind people. Like they have the speed to take it to the house, not crazy fast, but good enough. The knock on this guy, another comp is like maybe a little slower DJ Chark, which we're still DJ Chark fans here. But the problem that I have with the DJ Chark comp is that they both have one similarity that is a little scary. That they say that he doesn't necessarily go up and high point the ball. He body catches it at times. Chase Claypool, another guy that has that knock on
Yeah,
him.
they rely a lot on their size, but they don't use their size necessarily all the time as best as they can.
Exactly. And say what you will about Urban Meyer, but he called that out with DJ Chark. They were like, he doesn't play as big as he is. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the knock on this guy. But so for me, draft capital is going to be meaningful for this player. I know, John, how do you feel? Like if he's a first round pick, obviously we love him. Second,
Yeah.
if he falls to the third, is that still enough for you, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, listen, I feel like there's just so much talent at the wide receiver level now these days that falling out of the first round, falling out of the second round doesn't mean that you're not going to be a productive player. So I'm fine with it. To me, it's all about landing spot, right?
Yeah.
Does he go to a team that is taking them to be in their starting lineup? Like, there are definitely teams that may not target a first or second round wide receiver, but they need a wide receiver 2, or they need a wide receiver 1, or a guy that could break in to be a wide receiver 1. We saw a lot of round 2 wide receivers last year be starting wide receivers on teams. So I'm fine
And
with
I
it.
want to talk to that real quick, your point there, because it's such a great point about how the draft goes. For me, like there's three pieces to evaluating rookies. There's the production, which to me is the statistics and the film. That's your college production. That's what you did, and it's a combination of the two. You look at the film, you look at the numbers they put up in relation to everybody else. That's the production. Then the second piece is workout metrics. That's where the combine, the pro day, how much these guys weigh, how tall are they, hand size, arm
Right.
length, speed. Like that's a totally separate metric. And then the third one is draft data, And the problem that some people just think it's where you get drafted. Some people, in terms of draft capital, some people just think it's where you're going to play, landing spot. There's a third part of it which I call draft narrative, right? Did someone trade up to get you? How many wide receivers went
Right.
before you? How thin is this wide receiver class versus how deep it is, right? You look at T. Higgins, and in 2020, there were a ton of teams that needed wide receivers, big wide receivers. T. Higgins and Michael Pittman went, and then the Jets, who needed a big wide receiver, traded back. They could have taken Chase Claypool. They could have taken guys. They traded back and then later took Denzel Mims. That tells me what kind of grade did they have on Mims that they sat there and said, we don't need to use this pick on him
Right.
here. So that type of narrative, you have to think about that. If so, like you said, John, if there's so many, middle range guys that no one is everyone just saying, oh, we'll get somebody later, then maybe you do. Maybe you don't
Yeah.
care if the guy goes in the third or even the fourth. So something to think
Yep.
about.
Again, you'll be able to tell sort of how the board's falling with some of these guys. Like there's a clear cut top
Yeah,
tier, and then there's just a bunch of guys that all have like second or third round grades, but they're all startable type of players in the NFL. For me, it's more landing spot than necessarily a draft
for sure. Who
draft
else, as
location
far
there.
as these mid-range guys, John, who else are you feeling? Who else you
Yeah,
like?
I think Jonathan
Yeah,
Mingo,
yeah, yeah.
again, somebody that coming out of Ole Miss, he's got a second or third round projection. Currently, if you look at mock drafts, the latest mock draft, and I know these things aren't always an exact science, Tennessee Titans seem to be a team that he's getting some buzz to kind of go around to. And you look at Tennessee, a team that could be in transition. There's those floating
Yeah.
rumors out there that Derrick Henry maybe was on the market. They went and they got Treylon Burks last year. They moved on from AJ Brown. They're looking at a new quarterback, but they do need a wide receiver too there, right? They definitely need to improve their pass catching options there. So you go ahead and you pair Treylon Burks with the Jonathan Mingo, and now you have maybe an explosive passing attack to go along with that grinding running game, and maybe an athletic quarterback to go with it as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, this guy, he is like the Twitter darling right now. He's the one that has moved up the most as of late. People are all over him, and when I check him out, dude, I can see it, man. With the play action, the way that he is great on deep throws and can add the yak, like that's the big play formula. So with Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill pulling it back and chucking it up, I could absolutely see this guy making a splash right away. I mean, there's a spot right open there. The question is, does he go to the Titans like like we haven't projected, or does he end up somewhere where he's the third fiddle? The problem with guys like this is when you're the third dog and you're the deep threat guy, you could end up being the field stretcher, and
Right.
that which is a very important part of real life football to take the safeties away. But I don't get any fantasy points when you take the top off of defense so that somebody can catch it underneath. So I guess that's my only concern, but I like this guy a lot. I'm moving him up. A lot of our Patriots, Alex Barth and Evan Lazar, the beat writers, they love this guy. They've loved this guy before Twitter loved him. So
Right.
that has me excited for him. My mid range guy, he's a guy, Josh Downs from UNC. And I spoke with Brandon Huffman of 247 Sports. He's a big tight end guy. So we had him on to talk tight ends and unsolicited. So we were talking about guys that the idea of a guy that like the S2 cognitive test, a guy that just has that extra something, that dog, that mentality, they can process things. And he unsolicitedly brought up two players. One was Bryce Young, the other was Josh Downs. And he was like, this guy is, he's like, I don't get why all the people posting cons and posting his workouts. He's like, this guy is just a pure football player. Like, this guy is good at football. And he even went as far as say his little brother, who is a running back going to Alabama, is also an incredible prospect that we all need to keep our eyes on. But this guy, back to back 1,000-yard seasons. Uh, if a guy like Brandon Huffman, who is kind of a legendary scout, mostly high school to college scouting, if he likes Josh Downs, then I like Josh Downs. Like sometimes that's the way it works for me. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, listen, again, it's all about, that athletic ability that he kind of has, right? And teams can sometimes take shots on those players and see if they can get them in their system and have him sort of reach that full on potential. So, yeah, I don't mind that option, kind of going in that mid range there. And we know, again, if you're looking at how teams sort of set up their offenses lately and the importance, as you mentioned, of a guy that could go in the slot, I think that certainly makes sense in the right fit for sure.
Yeah.
For a sleeper for me, we're looking at Xavier Hutchinson at Iowa State. Again, a guy
Nice.
that's going late, fifth or sixth round projection here. But a guy that, again, was one of the finalists for the top wide receiver in all of college football. You had over 100 receptions, 1,100 yards last year. Sure, he's a little bit older. And I don't know how you feel about draft comps, but I've been going around trying to see what some of these sites are comparing him to. And one of the sites I saw had him as Michael Thomas, right? So obviously, if he turns
Pretty good
into
player.
Turns into Michael Thomas, you're hitting yourself a home run in round 5 or 6. Obviously, there's a long way for him to kind of reach those projections, but again, another guy that sort of has that projectable body type that could maybe become something if you get him in the right system and he kind of reaches that maximized potential for himself.
Yeah, I mean, like, even the low end comps I've been seeing for him because, like, they do the whole, Michael Thomas is the high end comp, and they have the low end comps. Like, the low end comps I've seen are like Romeo Dubs, Jabbar Gaffney. Like,
Yeah.
those are, to me, pretty good players. Like, Jabbar Gaffney
Hey,
is a
Tom Brady loved Jabbar Gaffney,
yeah.
so
It's, I mean, so interesting comps for this guy. And the other interesting thing is it really speaks to how you really can't just look at one piece of the puzzle with these guys. Like, if you just take half of the production, you don't even watch the film, and you just look at the stats, this guy's stats are incredible. I mean, like,
yeah,
he's a you mentioned that he was Biletnikoff Award finalist, right? Like, that's how crazy it is, like, separating the college talents
right,
from the NFL prospects. Like, this guy could put up crazy numbers in college at Iowa State, be the finalist for the best wide receiver because he did have some of the best stats for wide receiver.
right.
And we're talking about a guy that's probably going to go on day 3 of the draft
Yep.
versus, and we see it at quarterback all the time. These guys throw 50 touchdowns, and I'm like, why isn't that guy good? And they're like, well, he played a bunch of games versus Hawaii or whatever. And so
Yeah.
you have to separate it. But with this guy, I'm feeling good about him. And you mentioned his age, that he's 23. Uh, he had a very young breakout age. So he broke out at 20. It was one of those things where he just wanted to stay at school and
Yeah.
finish his career there and graduate. But I'm not sure I'll take that away from him because it's not the problem we have with the old prospects is obviously that a 22-year-old player playing against 20 and 19-year-olds, obviously he's going to dominate, right? Like,
Right.
that's the problem we have. But this guy dominated when he was 20. So I'll take that and I'll give it to him as a plus. You in Dynasty, you lose 1 year of how long
Right.
you get to have him, but who cares,
Right.
Uh,
Exactly.
so my sleeper, I would like to say that the fact that he has a cool name had no part in this, but it does. He has an awesome, maybe the coolest name in the draft, Puka Nakua from BYU. He started his career at Washington, transferred to BYU. Uh, Amazing name, and honestly, a great player. So for me, I have no problem throwing him in as my sleeper here. He was second among all rookie wide receivers in yards per route run. The metrics people love that stat, and for good reason. When you like, if you take one single stat and sort by it, you don't always get the best guys. Targets is one where typically you get a lot of the best guys, but those can be empty targets at time.
Yeah.
There aren't many people that are putting, like, when you sort by yards per route run at the NFL level, you're getting Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, right? Like, you almost can't fake it.
Yeah.
So if this guy is second among all guys that got 50 targets in that stat, I'm fully on board. And they had him doing a bunch of stuff over at BYU that showed, special teams, a lot of things like, he had 39 carries. So that type of versatility, give me that all day long,
Yeah.
especially if I can get him late. I mean, have you seen any mocks on, like, where this guy's going? It's hard to get a read on a guy like
Yeah,
that.
I haven't seen a ton. Let's see if maybe there's anything in the most recent. Because I know that these things are getting updated constantly right now. Sometimes these late guys are hard to
Right,
peg
yeah,
where
it's
exactly he's going to
I
go with.
I did find a 7-round PFF mock that had him going
Okay.
very late 6th round, to the Cowboys. The problem with these mocks sometimes is that, like, what they'll do is they'll take, so I know what the PFF one, which I do like it, but they take 32 different analysts and have them pick the guys they like, or not always 32. Sometimes guys do multiple teams, but
Yeah, they got the 49ers taking him in the 7th round, according to ESPN Matt Miller's latest mock draft. So,
yeah. So the one like Matt Miller, that's ESPN, right? So,
yeah,
like, that's a guy that's a football guy. He's level headed. With some of these ones with the fantasy guys, you get a lot of flag planting like we're doing right now,
Right.
right? Like you sit there and you say, I like Puka Nacua as a fantasy prospect, so I want to make sure he's somewhere
Goes to
in
a
here.
spot that like makes sense for fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, John. You move him up. This guy picked him to the Cowboys. You know
Right.
what I mean? So like it's a little bit of fantasy wishing, if you
Right.
will. Maybe not a realistic look at where he's going to go in real life. You know,
Yeah.
but
Taking a look here.
weren't a
Running,
lot of there weren't a lot of long snappers taken in the PFF mock draft, John. You know
right.
what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Taking a look at running backs here. Obviously, Bijan Robinson. Don't need to like go extensively into what we think about him,
yeah.
right?
Don't, let's not even
Right
talk
now,
about him.
as we're even recording here live, I just updated DraftKings Sportsbook, and Bijan Robinson went from plus 200 to plus 150 to the Falcons. So
Yeah,
even as we were live, his odds continue to move. Atlanta maybe grabbing him at 8 if you're a believer in the Vegas odds there. But I want to take a look at Jahmyr Gibbs here. Someone that, interestingly enough, if you look at the DraftKings Sportsbook odds there, the New England Patriots at plus 500 are the best odds to draft Jahmyr Gibbs here. Again, coming from Bama, transfer from Georgia Tech. Are they going to honestly use a first or second round pick here on a running back? Because Ramondre Stevenson, he looked damn good last year. Sure, they lost Damian Harris. They signed James Robinson to a 2-year deal, which it seems like could certainly get himself out of that money if he doesn't perform in camp. But they have guys on that roster, Pierre Strong, that have been in that organization. Would they go back and honestly use an early round draft pick on a running back when they have some other needs here, Coop?
You know they don't care, John. They definitely don't care about the fantasy football community and how disappointed we would be in that move. But they are a best available based on their own board. So they don't even care. They'll take Cole Strange from UT Chattanooga. They'll take
hey, Duggar. Everybody was
Kyle
scratching
Duggar
their head on the Duggar pick, but he's a player. So
from Lenoir-Rhyne University. Yeah. So but yeah, he's great. And then the funny thing is Cole Strange looked good too. The picks that people hate turn out to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Everyone loved the N'Keal Harry pick. Like it was standing ovation. They picked the chalk player that everyone loved, and that ended up being their worst.
Best first round run blocking wide receiver there ever was.
Yeah, split tackle. He was basically like Willie Snead. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that.
Do you think the Bill O'Brien connection is the reason Jahmyr Gibbs is going there?
I mean, honestly, that if I already believed in him, but if Bill O'Brien likes him that much, I mean, there's 11 picks. The Patriots have 11 picks. There are going to be some Bama players. There's no question, right? The interesting thing about the Patriots this offseason is they've been tied to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a very pure pass catching back. The knock on him is that he didn't get a lot of rush work, right? They also brought in Kendre Miller for 2 visits, and he's the complete opposite, where that guy does not catch passes. He's a ground and pound guy. So, I mean, Mondre Stevenson could end up as the pass down back.
I get worried when I see player comps, Alvin Kamara, because Sony Michel had Alvin Kamara comps as well, and Nick Chubb went after him, and I would have much rather had Nick Chubb on my team.
You think?
Than the way. So, no offense to Sony Michel. He literally carried us through a playoff series to get in, during that Super Bowl run there, but Nick Chubb longevity there. So
I think when it's that close, you got to go with the guy that doesn't have a noted degenerative knee issue.
Yeah.
So yeah. So for Jahmyr Gibbs, he's perfect for fantasy football too, because I don't care about rushes. Like Calvin Kamara's never had a 1,000-yard season. Austin Eckler's never had a 1,000-yard season. I don't care if the guy is getting 70 targets, 60
get in the red zone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Give me the high leverage. If you get the two combo there of the red zone guy and the pass catch guy, that's all I care about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in on Jahmyr Gibbs. My high end guy that I like is the guy I have at RB3, right? Because we all have Bijan 1. I have Gibbs 2. At 3, I have Zach Charbonnet. He's from UCLA. He's honestly, when I look around, the way I do it is like, okay, generational guy goes first. Then I take the best pass catching guy that could be a 3-down guy. After that, I'm just looking for guys that I think can actually be 3-down guys. Like you gotta move away from the guys that are just early down guys or just pass catchers. We want guys that have 3-down upside. That's this guy for me. 6 foot 210, right? If he goes in like the second or third round, if he goes in the second round, I mean like 6 foot 210. That's like where Le'Veon Bell went. That's where Joe Mixon went. Third round, a guy like DeMarco Murray. I mean, he came from the third round with a similar size, right? So if if we can get that kind of capital on this guy, and again, I've seen him go anywhere from the second to third. And there, anytime a guy is they say he's going in the third, he could go in the fourth,
Right.
right? But with running backs, I don't care as much about that. So Charbonnet's a guy I'm in on him. I have him RB3. You thinking you have him in that range as well, John?
Yeah, I mean that's where you've seen him kind of go in some mock drafts there as well. And again, you're talking about a prospect here that has sort of that size that you want in a running back, or mixed with some of that power speed. So I like him there for sure. Another guy for me that maybe in a mid range here is Devin Achane out of Texas A&M. 4.3240 there, Coop. That will get you on the radar of a lot of teams. I've seen some recent mock drafts of him going to the Philadelphia Eagles. We know they just moved on from Miles Sanders. There's some questions as to their running back. They have a lot of them, right? We talk about the group that they have with Gainwell and Scott, and they brought in Penny, right, this offseason there. And we know the health problems that he's had. We saw Bijan Robinson asked, what quarterback would you like to play with in the NFL? And he said Jalen Hurts. Well, it doesn't seem like Jalen Hurts is going to be on Bijan Robinson is going to be on the Eagles board by the time they pick, unless they trade up. But you add in a burner like Achane in that offense when the RPO with Jalen Hurts and some home run plays there could be in the making.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that in my early best ball drafts, I go on Underdog. I use promo code ALARM. They match up to 100% of whatever I deposit, up to $100 in bonus credits. A little shout out there, Fantasy Alarm. But when I go on Underdog, which at this time of the year, obviously I want to win a bunch of money, but I'm doing a lot of them just to get a better idea of ADP. This is a guy that I'm taking a ton out of these rookies just because of the home run hitting ability, especially in best ball where I don't need to set my lineup. Give me Raheem Mostert, right? Give me the guy that can hit a 70-yard play at any time.
Right.
And 4.32, that's like, was that like 99th percentile speed for maybe the entire league, but definitely for running back.
There definitely aren't many faster players in the NFL.
Like at all.
I'll say that.
Even cornerbacks, right? Like, so
right.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not even worried about the size if he goes to a team like the Eagles, because all of their running backs are all small.
Right.
Boston Scott, they were big Sproles guys. Gainwell is only 5'9", so like they don't really have big backs generally, and they don't mind the smaller guys here. So size is not a problem for me with him.
I will say though, like I bring up the comp that I did, Raheem Mostert, like with the size, I'm not worried about playing time. Sometimes you worry a little bit about injury. I mean, 5'9", 188. Would have loved for him to be a little closer to 200, but I mean,
get him in that NFL training program, and maybe he throws on a few more LBs.
Possible, man, possible. So my mid-range guy is so in this group. So now with the first group, we talked about the top end guys we think could be 3-down guys. Now we're kind of picking and choosing roles. So like you're gonna have guys that are split into run down guys versus pass down guys. Like your guy there, Achane, maybe not a every down back, right, at his size, but he's in line for a good role. I like Evan Hull because he's 5'10", 209, so big enough to get it done. He ran a 4.47, which is, it's not 4.32, but still top 15, 20% for the position. And this guy's a pass catcher, right? Last 2 seasons, 33 and 55 receptions. And he had over 1,000 rushing yards as a sophomore, but not the greatest rusher. PFF didn't grade him out well in rushing. But, I look at the comps. I see people saying Duke Johnson, James White. I mean, James White, and I know we're Patriots fans here, but in his career, when you look at the time he played, during that time span, no running back had more receptions than him. Not Alvin Kamara, not Christian McCaffrey, not Zeke, right? Like this guy, he could get it done. He has the record for most receptions in the Super Bowl. So of any player. So if they're comping Evan Hull to James White and he goes to a team that has a pass catching spot open, like what if he goes to the Seahawks and Kenneth Walker is the starting back and he's the pass catching back? Kind of interested there, man. So I'm in on that as long as he gets at least prerequisite draft capital, because if he goes in the 7th round, now we're talking, Eno Benjamin 2.0, right? But what are you going to do?
Right. For me, when it comes to maybe a value or a sleeper, we're looking at Israel Abanaconda here. running
Ooh, that's
back,
a hot
and
boy pick right there.
he seemingly has a wide range of mock draft landing spots. I've seen him go as early as round 3. I've seen him go late as round 7. And honestly, he's all over the board. Some recent athletic mock drafts, one of them by Zach Berman, had him in the 3rd round to the Eagles. We just talked about maybe a landing spot, for the Eagles that are running back. Another athletic mock draft by Zach Jackson, rather, had him going round 5 to the Browns. So, there's different authors at the Athletic, different mock drafts, have them going 2 rounds apart, one in round 3, one in round 5. So it feels like, depending on who the scout is, there's a big wide range of opinions on this player.
Yeah, I mean, if Jonathan Mingo is the current Twitter darling for wide receivers, Izzy Abanikanda is the running back version. Like, he's this year's Isaiah Pacheco, and I think Isaiah Pacheco actually not a bad comp for him.
Right.
I think the knocks on this guy are that he didn't really show much as a pass catcher. Doesn't mean that he can't catch passes. Again, we never know on those things whether the system calls for it or not. Sometimes there's guys we know. I'll talk about one next, actually, that probably is not going to catch a lot of passes. But this guy, like a Pacheco, man, he's 5'10", 216. I mean, 4.45. He's got everything you need to be that type of player, and people love him. So he's another example of a guy where, if you are doing a mock with a group of people and you got some fantasy football people in there, he's going to go earlier than if you just have like a,
Right.
Joe Klatt doing his own mock as a college football guy.
Yeah.
So that's the different that's why they differ there. But I think 4th round is probably pretty reasonable for this guy. If he goes in the 2nd or 3rd round, Twitter's going to explode. So,
Right.
we'd love to see that. He's definitely one I'm keeping an eye on. Another one, and so this one I'm going to plant my flag on here. People are going to hate, right? Like, people hate this player. And I'm telling you right now, I have a specific strategy I've been using. As of late, hasn't worked that well because people catch on. Because I come on here and I tell people about it, but
Well,
I'm trying to help you guys. You know what I mean? I'm trying to help people get better at this game. But this is what I would do: is I go in, and I think, with my 3rd round pick in my rookie draft, I say, what guy can I pick and flip? What guy can I pick in the 3rd round and then trade for a 2nd round pick? So I look around, I'm like, who's going to carve out an actual role? This player, Dwayne McBride from Alabama Birmingham Blazers. Didn't really watch a lot of those games, John. Not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, honestly, not. I love UAB, but not where I was focusing on.
Right? Yeah, I don't even know if I get that channel. But and this is the guy that does not catch passes, and I'm talking. Guess how many passes he caught in his entire college career, John?
3.
5. He ran for 1,700 yards last year and 19 touchdowns and caught 2 passes. So we are talking Alfred Morris here, right? Like,
Yeah.
Jordan Howard. But Alfred Morris and Jordan Howard served a role right away. So once we get in the range of, is this guy even going to play at all, right? Or are they not? Then I'm trying to find guys that are just going to play. And if this guy goes out and has 100 yards rushing and scores a touchdown, now I can trade him. There are certain spots where he goes. Like, what if he goes to the Chargers? The Chargers the reason they lost to the Jags is they couldn't run the ball when everyone knew they were going to run the ball. They couldn't close that game out, right, John? If they went and go and get a guy like this to be their goal line back, and people look at the age of Eckler, now I can do my little pick and flip. I don't necessarily want him long term if he's not going to catch passes, but the old pick and flip move, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's possible. Do you think the age of Eckler is the same as the age of other running backs that have more wear and tear on their body from running the football, though?
He's accumulated more of it in recent years. He did spend enough. I feel like he spent a good amount of time as just a pass catching back that could avoid that, but they've been using him as the every down back.
I wonder sometimes if the age of a running back, is it the age of the running back, or is it the carries of the running back that are really what does a player in?
So, John, I actually asked that question on Twitter a while back. I put 3 scenarios up there. I put up injuries, right? Because if you look at guys with injuries, they don't have as many carries, right? So I put, like, Dalvin Cook, for instance, like, missed so much time that he doesn't have as many carries as Zeke. Injuries, actual wear and tear, and age, and the one that they said they cared less about was the age. So, from your standpoint, I think I agree that if the guy gets a late start, then he has less wear and tear on him than guys that right from the rip are getting a million carries. Those guys are going to have those lingering issues. You know what I mean? Like the cartilage removed, and that's never coming back. Like
Right.
the nerve damage, things like that. So I'm with you on that. That I think he can, and especially his style of play translates better to longevity.
Yeah, and
Than
even to that point, if they do bring in a guy that they have to take away some of his carries, a lot of his fantasy production is coming from his receiving and red zone work anyways. So if they take some of the between the 20s work in terms of carrying the football, like you still may
it
this.
would be best for everyone. Like if I'm the Chargers, I say, oh, okay, Austin, how much money do you want? I figure out a way to extend him long term, and then I say, hey, we're going to take some of the load off your back here, so that we're going to give you this
Make
long
him like
term.
Aaron Jones, 200 carries and primary
Bingo.
pass catching back,
Right. And then you have your AJ Dillon is Dwayne McBride. And this guy, I mean, 1,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, John. I mean, the guy he can run the football.
Right.
There's no question about that. It's just the pass catching that has people scared for fantasy. For me, pick and flip. Bingo.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's go
half
to
the
tight
guys you
end
draft
here.
in the third round are going to be there. You're just going to drop the waivers, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's go to tight end. Obviously, you're the key tight end guy here in fantasy football. I'll take the low hanging fruit here. Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, expected to be a first round pick. Most recent mock draft by some big names here. Will Brinson, CBS, Jason Lockenfor over at the Washington Post, Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
Also, currently the top favorite on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Also, the Dallas Cowboys to draft him. Do the Cowboys need a tight end in your opinion here? Does it make sense this landing spot for him?
I was actually on Sirius last night talking to the GM Jim Bowden, big Cowboys fan. He asked me that same question, and I think that this is the perfect guy for them. And you don't want to draft honestly, I don't want them to draft any other tight end, because those guys are, and we'll talk about everybody else and what they do best. This guy is the real pure two-way tight end, which is what this team needs, because they are going to be an 11 personnel team now. You have three, what I think are good wide receivers, right? CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. You want those guys on the field as much as possible. So you don't want the last guy you want is like a Mike Gesicki type guy that only plays slot, because then you need another inline guy. This guy immediately better, shout out Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot.
I was going to say, they did invest. It was a third round pick on one of them last year.
Fine players. But I mean, like this, he would immediately be an every down player and pass catching option for that team. I love that pick for them. And the Cowboys are the kind of team that are willing to do that. Like Jerry Jones loves taking flashy picks, right? So I could see them. I know Bijan's not going to be there, but like that's the kind of pick they make.
I'd rather just get more offensive linemen, because it seems like every year they lose half their offensive line.
Yeah. Now I'll go with my high end guy, another guy that's been mocked a ton to the Cowboys, that I think is a perfect example of, I think, people not looking at it correctly, in my opinion, is Dalton Kincaid. Because Dalton Kincaid he's the best film by far. He did lead all tight ends in yardage. He looks like a wide receiver and plays like a wide receiver, right? So you want that guy playing a ton of snaps in the slot. You don't want him as a two-way Jason Witten hand in the dirt tight end, because if you're going to have that formation and have a guy in the slot and have an inline tight end, now you got to take Michael Gallup out, or you got to take Brandon Cooks out. You're not taking CeeDee Lamb out, obviously. You don't want to have to do that. You want to have the option of putting Tony Pollard at the slot if you want, right? So I don't like him to that spot. I love him if he goes to anywhere where he can play slot right away. Like, what if the Packers, right? Who did we talk about? We talked about a wide receiver that people were rocking to him earlier, right?
Yeah, it was they had, where is it? I had it down. Now we're skipping through. It was Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. So that would, for me, that crushes what could be such a beautiful landing spot for a tight end. Because if they take Jackson Smith and Jigba, he goes in the slot. They have Christian Watson. If they don't take him, what if they take Dalton Kincaid instead and they make him the big slot? And now he's a top 2 target. That's the rare occasion where we have a rookie tight end that is relevant in fantasy right from the rip. So if you could take a guy like this and put him in a spot like that, beautiful, John. Beautiful.
Maybe when we talk, freak, and we say it lovingly, Darnell Washington sort of is just a specimen to look at. He is an absolute monster at the tight end position here. His draft grade is also kind of a little bit all over the board. I've seen him go anywhere in the first round. I've seen him go as low as the third round. One of the more recent mock drafts, Joel Klatt of Fox Sports has him going in the first round to the Cincinnati Bengals. They signed Irv Smith. Obviously, they have Chase and Higgins and Boyd. Maybe not the best landing spot for him, but if they get in the red zone and they got a 6'7" tight end to throw the football to,
Right.
That could at least be some fantasy relevance there for that aspect of it all.
Best ball, yeah. People keep telling me, the Bengals are the best landing spot ever, and I'm just like, who is he going to get more targets than? T. Higgins or Jamar Chase? Because the vast majority of high-end tight ends are top 2 targets on the team.
Yeah.
So it's not even about Tyler Boyd.
If he catches touchdowns, though, that's where the value comes in, right?
In best ball. But I mean, we've seen guys like Robert Tonyan catch 1,000,000 touchdowns, and they, at the end of the day, they let you down when it's such a boom bust situation, So I don't know if I love that. The other thing about Darnell Washington that scares the hell out of me is on this very network, we had that convo with Brandon Huffman that I alluded to earlier. He said that when this guy was 17, 16 years old, the scouts were talking to him, and a lot of people were telling him, your meal ticket is as a blocker. Your meal ticket is to convert to offensive lineman, which, when it was 6'7".
He's 6'8", 260.
Right? That's what I mean. It's like
he should be a defensive end, is what he should be.
Right. And people say that he lost weight for the combine to, just specifically for it. People were saying he was playing at 280, which I mean, you put on 30 pounds. Now you're a offensive tackle.
Right.
And I will say that I've seen go search George Fant, Eastern Kentucky. Like there's videos of him at Eastern Kentucky playing basketball. That's what he was playing. He's looked fluid, looked great. Then he converted to tight end. You know what he's doing now, John? George Fant? He's a 320-pound offensive tackle for the New York Jets. So like they can it doesn't matter necessarily if people look at his blocking and that's what they want, that's what they get.
Sure.
Like if he comes to the Patriots, he would be like, because they have Gesicki, he would be like Martellus Bennett, which is a great player. Patriots don't win the Super Bowl without Martellus Bennett, but is that a fantasy player? That's my question. But I mean, the upside for a guy like this, John, I mean, if he is a true pass catcher, I mean, it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got a guy running a 4.6 at that size. I mean, that is difficult to deal with. So it would be the landing spot obviously matters. If he's going to a big pass offense that's going to score a lot of points, they're not going to not have him on the field. I don't think in red zone opportunities. So, but you're right, probably more consistency with best ball there. Who's your mid-range tight end?
Yeah, so the chat already got to this one before me. I see Matt Deutsch, the better boss, in the chat saying tight end you. That's my guy here. This is my plan for my across the board. Like if you're looking for one guy that I'm truly in on, planting my flag hard at tight end position, it's Sam Laporta from the Iowa Tight End Factory. He calls it tight end you because we get George Kittle.
We looked at that one of our recent podcasts. The amount of tight ends that came from Iowa is unbelievable.
It's insane. T.J. Hawkinson, Noah Fant, the same draft. And it goes back farther. I think there's a few other names in there, but it's very impressive. Now this guy, he has the most fun film to watch. He had 23 broken tackles. Yak monster. So people like guys like Luke Musgrave and Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. Those dudes in their entire college career each broke 2 tackles. They no contested catches. Like this guy goes out there and just offers everything you want to see on film. I'm not even that big of a film guy, John, but with rookie prospects, there's no other way to figure out if these guys are good or not than to watch it. And I look for like George Kittle, you watch his film, it's amazing. It's all hurdles and diving and finishing plays. That's this guy. He can do it in man-to-man, contested catches, ripping off 30-yard chunk plays. The only knock on him is he might not be big enough to play in line. I don't care. I don't want him to play in line. I want him to play slot for the Packers or go to the Patriots, and then next year they let Mike Gesicki leave, and he plays what the role Mike Gesicki has. So Sam Laporta, flag firmly planted.
That works for me. When talking about sleeper tight ends here, Zach Kuntz out of Old Dominion, a guy that has a player comp of Mike Gesicki. You love the size, 6'7", 250. He ran a 4.5. Looking over some mock drafts here, there's a NFL mock draft database that kind of aggregates all these mock drafts. It seems like he's going generally anywhere between rounds 3 and 5. But Rams wire Cameron DeSilva came out with his mock draft. He has the Rams taking him in round 1.
God, I would love that. I would love that. I would victory lap that so hard on Twitter. And the Rams, I mean, Tyler Higbee's 30. They just traded Allen Robinson. Cooper Kupp's 30.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so you mentioned the 4.5, 6.7, 255. You know um that combined with his other like broad jump and stuff gave him the number one perfect 10 relative athletic score. So, I mean, for me personally, Vernon Davis has the best combine of all time.
Right.
I'm not going to crown Zach Kuntz with that, but I mean, my goodness.
Our guy
Uh,
Zach Cox from Nesson has the Patriots taking him in round 4.
Love it, dude. I love it. If he goes anywhere from round 3 to 5, if he goes anywhere higher than round 6 or 7, I'll be in on him. Now, the knock on this guy is that he was at Penn State, had to transfer out because Brenton Strange, another guy who's going to get drafted, was there, and then he played at Old Dominion.
Right.
The one part of the process I wish we had access to. I wish we could be in the room when when the scouts say, "Hey, why'd you transfer?" And then he says, "Oh, Brenton Strange, blah blah blah," and then they really needle him and say, "Walk me through your decision to transfer," because I
Right.
would love to know. And we'll never, at this stage, we don't have that info, but I would just love to be able to hear that because that would mean all the difference to me as a scout, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Knowing why you would leave a prominent program, because someone else came in there.
exactly. Like, why didn't you stay and compete? Like,
Right.
so it'd be good to hear that. We're not going to hear it, but hey, if he goes in the second round, that means that the scouts like what they heard.
Yep.
So I'm in on it. And I got one last guy. I'm going to cheat right now, John. I'm the
Fine.
tight end guy, so I'm allowed to do whatever I want.
It's
Those
true.
are the rules. So I'm going to pick Elijah Higgins from Stanford. Now, the reason I'm cheating is that he played wide receiver at Stanford. He was not a tight end, but he said at the combine, he talked to multiple teams and they said, he told everybody that, I talked to the Jags, I talked to all these teams. They asked me if I'd be willing to play tight end. And he said that since then, he's been watching Evan Ingram and trying to replicate what Evan Ingram does. Now, if this guy, when you pull up his metrics, his workout, his size, everything, if this guy were a tight end, he wouldn't comp to the wide receivers. He comps to like guys like Juwan Johnson, 6'3, 4.54, 235 pounds. He would immediately, if we knew for sure he was a tight end, he would immediately jump up to like the
Right.
same range we have Sam Laporta. What's the difference between Sam Laporta and this guy if he's a tight end, right? Like, and Juwan Johnson is a great comp because he was a wide receiver in college too, and then he's converted. So that for me makes this guy a guy I'm throwing on my taxi squad and just crossing my fingers.
Yep. 100%. Cool. We got a lot going on here at the Better Sports Network. You got to get on the Better Sports Network app. That is the best NFL draft experience you're going to find. Join us Thursday and Friday night to follow all picks, chat with fans, and play our live draft game. Get instant fantasy football and betting analysis as the picks are announced. Answer predictive questions and compete for your chance to win fabulous prizes. Pre-draft coverage begins Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern and Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. The 2023 NFL Draft Bettercast. Download the Better Sports Network app for free right now in the Google Play and Apple stores. Coop, that's it for you and I today. We'll be back with some draft reactions next week with the Quick Out Fantasy Football Podcast for myself and Andrew Cooper.